All right, I'm Leslie. I'm the mama. When I was 5 years old, my father came to know Christ as his Savior, and I don't so much remember the day that he came to know Christ as much as I remember all of the changes that all of a sudden started to happen around our home, and I didn't understand. And one day I noticed all of a sudden we started calling that little table in front of the couch, instead of calling it a cocktail table, all of a sudden it started being called a coffee table. And I said, Daddy, why are we calling it all of a sudden a coffee table? And it's funny because I always thought of fruit cocktail, not cocktail, so it meant, But anyways, why are we calling it a coffee table? And he said, well, Leslie, now that I've become a believer, we're going to be doing things differently around here. And so I just remember that, and that made a very big impact on me and on my life. We went to a local church, and I heard the gospel and so forth, but I never personally accepted Christ as my personal Savior. And one day, my parents sent all of us to a Christian camp. And during the course of the week at camp, my counselor came up to me and said, Leslie, have you been saved? Are you a Christian? And my response to her was, well, I was afraid that she wouldn't like me if I were to tell her the truth, that I had never become a Christian. I never accepted Christ into my life. And I was very fearful about not being liked. And so I responded to her, and I says, oh, yes, I'm a Christian. I got saved. And I had heard enough about the gospel that I was able to tell her a story that convinced her. And so she says, oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And she got up from the picnic table where we were sitting, and she walked away. And I remember looking at her back, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, what have I done to spurn God's love? And what have I done to turn someone away who wanted to personally lead me to Christ? So I promised myself that never, ever would I do that again. If ever anybody offered to lead me to the Lord, that I would take them up on that and ask Christ into my life. And at that point, I was extremely ripe, because the Lord had already spoken to me. That He let me know that you can fool other people, but I would never be able to fool Him. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, being at a Christian camp, it didn't take long for another invitation. We were at a meeting that evening, and they gave the altar call, and if anybody wanted to get saved, to come forward. Well, I was the first out of my seat, and my counselor led me to Christ at that time.